Hi, welcome to 10-Minute Training Tuesday, a new vlog series that I'll be doing here where, you guessed it, each Tuesday I'll be releasing a video 10 minutes or under to try to help make you guys all better dog trainers. Each week we'll be covering a different topic in regards to training, and the first we'll be covering is what I consider to be the most important, which is motivation. There's two main schools of thought when it comes to training dogs these days. The first is reward-based training, where you use food, toys, praise in exchange for your dog performing behaviors for you that you'd like to teach them. And the second is kind of more dominance-based, correction-based, where you're teaching the dog to do something for you to avoid a negative correction or to stop doing something that you don't like them doing to avoid being punished for that. Most training you can get down into the details of what it is, but they kind of fall into those two different categories. I am definitely a reward-based trainer. I have been training dogs long enough that I started way back before there was any other option other than the second dominance-based training where we used corrections. But even back then when I was a kid, I really did not enjoy giving my dog any kind of a correction, and I really tried to sneak around and figure out ways that I could play with them and motivate them to want to do those exercises for me. When I meet with a client, one of the first things they always say, what they're concerned about using food or rewards in training, is that they're always going to have that food with them, and if they don't have a cookie in their pocket, that their dog's not going to listen to them. That is a valid concern, and certainly if you use food incorrectly or rewards incorrectly in training, you can create that behavior with your dogs where they look to see whether you've got a cookie before they decide to do something. But that's not a result of the food being used, that's simply a result of not using it correctly and not understanding the difference between using food as a reward versus using food as a bribe. So the first thing that you want to do is to determine what your dog's primary motivator is, what they kind of really get excited by and what turns them on more than anything to want to perform behaviors for you. Most dogs are going to fall into two main categories: using food or using a toy. And that really is an individual thing. You will be surprised how many dogs would far prefer to do something for you in exchange for playing versus... We're going to start with using food in training. The play is going to be a whole nother subject all on its own. In fact, if you've watched some of my other videos, you'll probably see how important and in how much detail I go into using toys. But we're going to start with food today because for most dogs and for most people, it's the easiest motivator to start with. Because dogs need to eat to live and they need you to give them that food. So it's a very easy motivation to provide for your dogs. The first thing I'm going to do is to find out what food my dog is most attracted to. You would be surprised how individual this is. I have one dog that will spit cheese out because he just thinks it's just disgusting, and he will do backflips for like pieces of mango. So I do like to experiment around to see what different foods they like and which ones really perk their interest. So with Emily, I know that jerky is her favorite. She's kind of a low food drive dog. She's far more interested in play, but there are a lot of behaviors that I like to use food with. So I know for her that jerky is the top of the list and that these others are kind of a little bit lower in scale. Why do you need to know that? Well, because you want to have a range, a different variety of treats that you can use so that depending on the distractions that you're working around, depending on where your dog is at in training, you want to have a different range to pull from. So if I'm teaching my puppy something, a brand new behavior, and I'm at home where there's really not much going on and they are interested and they are focused, then I'm going to use the treat that is kind of the lowest on that list. For most of my dogs, it's even kibble. These are just kind of hard, crunchy Charlie Bear treats that you can get, but basically any kind of, boring, low-grade treat there is fine to use when you're in a distraction-free environment. But if I decide to go out to a park and work with my new puppy, I'm going to have to kind of kick up a notch when I go to a more distracting area where there's other stuff going on and I'm now competing for their attention. And I'm gonna have a few choice things like for Em, her beef jerky, that's only gonna come out whenever there's really something special going on. So if I'm in a distracting area and she happens to give me a brilliant command, she might get a little piece of jerky that time instead of one of these lower level treats. So I wanna have a way to kind of emphasize how much I like something when she does it. And if I'm always using the exact same level of treat, I can't do that. I can't mark something as being a better performance if I'm always giving that out. And I would say, out of all the people that I work with training dogs, this is one of the things I see the most, is people go to a high level treat, they go, oh, my dog loves beef jerky, so that's all they use when they go out training. And after the dog's gotten, 10 pieces of beef jerky, when you're walking around the pet store, they're suddenly no longer interested in it, and now that other dog they see down the aisle is far more important to them. So you want to be able to build as the distractions build, and you want to be able to punctuate something as being amazing whenever they do something extraordinary for you, and that's going to help by having a level of treat to go up. This food, the treat, it needs to be a reward, not a bribe. So what people also get stuck with is that they're always bringing the food out before the dog has done the behavior and showing what they have, and then if the dog does the behavior, giving it to them. I'm only ever going to do that once or twice in the beginning stages when I'm trying to show a dog how to sit or how to lay down. I might put the food as a lure to kind of show their bodies how to do it. But as quickly as possible, I need to get to where I'm getting the dog to do the behavior and then using that treat as a reward for having done it for me. That's really one of the things that just gets people into so much trouble, is that the dog sees that there's no cookie in the hand. That means they're not getting a cookie. So as quickly as possible, I want my hand to move in that same movement that I've used when I'm using the treat, but there's no cookie in it. And then after the dog is sat for me, I'm going to pull out that treat and give it to them. So I want it to come for the desired behavior, not as a way to bribe them or lure them into doing it. When I show some of the actual training techniques, I'll go into more detail about that, but that's really a big key, is understanding that difference. You want food and training to always be more like the dog is gambling, playing the lottery, and they're hoping they're going to get this beef jerky, but sometimes they're getting the lower level, sometimes they're getting the cheese, sometimes they're just getting love as in pets, but they're not ever able to know ahead of time what that's going to be. That's what's going to give you the best behavior that's going to hold up over time, is if the dog cannot predict what their reward is going to be or when they're going to get it, and it's all on a lottery system. This food has to be an extension of your relationship with the dog. You have to put your emotion and your love of your dog into giving them a treat. Most all of my dogs would probably eat a pebble if I handed it to them, because that thing that I'm handing to them, it's an extension of the fact that I'm happy with what they did and I'm super excited by it, and I'm smiling and I'm laughing and I'm telling them how wonderful they are. And my goal is to get that tail, if they have one, wagging as fast as possible before I feed that treat, getting that twinkling in their eyes and having their eyes just looking at me with anticipation and excitement before I give them that treat. So that the treat is really just the icing on the cake, and the cake is that love and that pet and that praise and that relationship of us sharing this experience of learning together and communicating. So if you can effectively do that, treats become very easy to fade away and get away from needing to have in your pocket. My hands, my voice, my yahoos, my good girls, my I thank you so very much affection that I'm giving her is really what she prefers now to even the treats. She loves the treats and they will always be appreciated, but she's happy to do the behaviors for me just for that exchange of affection and love. So you can wean away from any tool that you're using to get behaviors if they are just a part of that process and they're a tool that you're using to let a dog know, yep, I liked that. Or, hey, if you do that even better or even faster, you might even get something higher up. So it's not the whole reason my dog is performing, but it's that icing on the cake. It's that way for me to say, good job, well done. That's what I was looking for.